Good morning. I'm Don MacArthur. I'm here with Dylan Christie and John Millson. We're dealing with some breaking news here in the Windsor Star News Cafe. John, you were here this morning on Trail Talk. You came back because of a stunning announcement. Ford, which there were plans for a $1.5 billion investment in Windsor for the 1.5, 1.6 liter engine that could help fuel the Fiesta. They've been torn asunder, and it looks like this deal might be off, and potentially 1,000 jobs affected in Windsor. What are your first thoughts on this?
I'm just devastated. When we take a look at the Premier being here last week, and we know that this news was told to city officials on Friday of last week, it's devastating. We have to fight. I mean, we just have to go after those jobs. Look, I heard about it last evening at 7:30. I was at a Spitz game, and I thought, well, it can't be true. Must have heard something about it by now. Have to fight for it. I immediately called the Premier's office. I talked to the Chief of Staff for the Premier, Tom Tion. I also spoke with Andrew Bevan's office, and then I called the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, Brad Duguid's office. I've been leaving messages for them, and I talked to the office again this morning. I was up till 1:30 this morning. I spoke with Matt Marchand. He's out of town. Spoke to him about it. Spoke with Minister of Economic Development and Trade, or locally, Sandra Pupatello. I mean, it's devastating.
You? Like, who pulled out? They going to Mexico? What are they telling you?
Here's the whole thing. I'm told that the Premier, the federal government, apparently is at the table with what's required. The province of Ontario isn't able to complete the deal, and Ford's just decided that they'd waited long enough and they were moving down to Mexico.
So this doesn't really fall on Windsor then? There's nothing that Windsor could have done to kind of position itself in a better place?
You know what? I would have been on that 401 this morning. I would have been in their face. If I knew about it last Friday, I would have been relentless in making sure that we got whatever we needed in the city of Windsor to have that new engine come here, because look where the problem's going to be. You know, we saw it dwindle away at General Motors, and now all of a sudden this, just 4 weeks ago, was a product that I thought was coming to Windsor. When the Premier said last week, we're not going to forget about Windsor, and then last month, October the 1st, she gave enough money to produce 1,200 brand new jobs at the Ford plant in Oakville. Well, where's the passion in Windsor? We got to fight. We got to get these jobs. We got to convince the government that we need these jobs now.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So Kathleen Wynne, she was here last weekend. She was at Caesars Windsor, sort of for a Liberal Party convention. So you're saying at that point, she told Eddie Francis, she told Drew Dilkins that at that point they knew about this?
All I know is that on Friday, there was a meeting between the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, Brad Duguid, and city officials and Local 200. And in fact, they knew about it at that time. And I know also that, that the mayor and Minister Sandra Pupatello were on the television as well, talking, I think, with the Premier. Surely the mayor would have met with the Premier when she was here. So why didn't we know about this?
Okay, so then a follow-up to question of that, assuming all that's true, and I don't know, we haven't talked to Eddie or Drew about this, the city has committed millions of dollars, in CIP breaks, to help them land this deal. So what would Drew Dilkins or what would Eddie Francis have to gain by not telling folks about this until after the election?
It's got nothing to do with CIP grants.
Okay.
And I have no idea why they didn't open it up to the public. I have no idea why they wouldn't have asked for some help, for some public input. Where's the passion? Where's that openness and transparency? I mean, I talk about CBC, that CBC, we were told that it was going to close. Well, what did we do? We rallied 6,000 people. And guess what? CBC is still wide open 23 years from now. I take a look at Windsor Raceway. What happened with the Windsor Raceway? It closed. Where was the passion? Where was the march on Queen's Park to save 1,500 jobs at Windsor Raceway? And now again today, we see an engine plant that I thought was destined here. Everybody felt it was destined here. We've got other investments that I've heard of that were coming to Windsor based on that engine being produced here in Windsor, and we still again haven't heard anything in the public, and we have to get it from a breaking news story that this has happened. And yet, where's the openness? Where's the passion really in the city of Windsor? Okay. These are our neighbors.
We talked about this morning on Trail Talk. You're tight with the Liberals. It sounds like that they're not the ones. Isn't that where the problem is? They're the ones you just said. Like, it's the province, it's Kathleen Wynne, it's the Liberals. That they're walking away from the table, or for whatever reason, that's where this thing is breaking down.
know,
so aren't your friends
you know what
involved?
my political party is? You know who my friends are?
City of
It's
Windsor.
Team Windsor. We called it Team. Don't laugh. We called it Team Windsor. So I'm sitting here right now saying that the Premier has to be held accountable. We have to be in her face, demanding that we get recognition down here. I mean, it was only 5 days ago that the Premier said, "Oh, we haven't forgotten about Windsor." So Premier Wynne, don't go to China on Monday. Come down to Windsor. Help us get these jobs.
Well, it seems like you do kind of have to reinvent yourself. When Francis was in earlier this week, he did make a comment that Mexico does have some really progressive initiatives that they're doing to bring business in. He said that. I could have been in reference to this. I don't know.
Well, then why didn't he open it up and say, you know, we have to push Queen's Park to come to the table? That's what I said a month ago at my Chamber of Commerce event, right? I said, we need a national auto strategy. We need to get the federal government and the provincial governments to come to the table with significant dollars to save these jobs in the city of Windsor, to save the auto industry in Canada. We need that national policy, and here we are now, today. I mean, we saw the day before I made that announcement, right? It was Premier talking about collaboratively working together with the municipality, with the local unions, with federal governments and her government to bring those 1,200 jobs to Oakville. 4 weeks later, what are we hearing? They didn't come to the table. We didn't fight enough for it. I don't know what, it goes back to collaboration again and openness and transparency. Where is it? I mean, this isn't an election issue. It's just merely neighbors helping neighbors.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of people counting on those jobs.
Oh my gosh, you just have no idea. And people were there is other industry that were coming here that was hinging on that engine plant coming here, because it wasn't just an engine for Fords, it was a lot of other suppliers and service industry that were going to help build that engine.
Okay, John, quick, we have to wrap this up.
Sorry.
Is there anything else you just want to say?
No, look, at Windsor, you got to get behind this. We got to get marching on Queen's Park. We got to do whatever we can to try and convince the government and Fords that these jobs have to come to Windsor.
Okay, thank you, John. Definitely in the early stages here, it's devastating news for Windsor. Grace Macaluso, it's a developing story. She's writing it. Devastating news. John, thanks for joining us in the Windsor Star News Cafe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.